there, and welcome back to the mini weekend. I'm your host, Jack. Let's get into a mini. Okay, interesting start. Yes, second straight week, going with Poppi. This time we just went with staple lemon lime for you guys. No lie, I'm not very impressed. I know on here we've talked about this, but if you don't remember or if you are new, Poppi is what is Poppi? They are essentially branded similar to Olipop, if you know Olipop, but they're essentially branding themselves as like sodas back, and they're essentially like healthy sodas. So within all of their sodas, there's prebiotics, apple cider vinegar, 5 grams sugar or less, and 25 calories or less. Like I said, they're branded as healthier sodas and actually prebiotic sodas. So once again, I always say this: Olipops or Poppies, if you're going to have them, I do not recommend having more than one, maybe 2 a day. The only time I would say have 2 a day is if you're having one like midday and maybe one at night with a movie or something like that. I would never drink 2 back to back. God forbid 3 or 4 or 5. And believe me, I say that because I learned the hard way. So, yep, that's kind of in a nutshell what Poppi is. And for those that have been around a while, I do really like these Poppies, and I do really like the Olipops as soda options and all that kind of fun stuff. And there are some of these sodas that I genuinely like, and taste reasons, I would rather have them over, their other sodas or certain other sodas. This one is not one of those ones. I'll drink them because they don't taste terrible, but just based off of taste, I would rather have a Starry, a Sprite, or a 7-Up over this. In my opinion, it's cold. It's been refrigerated till I just took it out a couple minutes ago for the podcast. It tastes a little flat for my liking. I don't know what's going on with it, but I can taste the apple cider vinegar just a little bit more. I should say a little bit more. I can actually taste it a little bit through all this, and a lot of their other ones I can't. So because of that, I'm going to have to go like a 4.8. I have to say, I pulled this up for you guys so that we could check in. This is our 8th of 17 flavors of Poppies we're having tonight. And I would honestly have Doc Pop, Cola, Strawberry Lemon, Cherry Cola, Cranberry Fizz, Wild Berry. For sure 6, if not 7 of the others before I had this one again. Again, it's not the world's worst soda I've ever had. Yeah, I just wouldn't recommend it. If you guys disagree, let me know. If there's other soda options you think we should be trying, let me know too. But yeah, like I said, 4.8, not thoroughly impressed with them. I'll drink them, like I said, again, just in an effort to be healthier and all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, wouldn't go out of my way to get these again. I actually got these in a 3-pack for the podcast because I'd never had these before, or the wild berry that we had last week. But the third one in the pack was Doc Pop, and no, was it Doc Pop? It was I think it was Doc Pop, and Doc Pop is like one of my favorite flavors that they have. Go check them out, Poppi, drinkpoppy.com, and you can also find them on social media. They are on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. So go check them out. First time in a couple weeks that we've had our Tommy Town segment. I had our good friend Sam on last week. Shout out to him. We have some info from him on some stuff a little bit later in the podcast that we'll get into. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. For the men's basketball team, since we were last on, they were on a 3-game winning streak. Since the last podcast, and a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-game winning streak. But that came to a halt a little bit earlier tonight as they lost to Omaha, Nebraska, 78-89. And again, you never want them to lose, but even with this loss, they're still sitting at 15-6, 5-1 in the conference, first conference loss of the year, and a lot of basketball still left to be played. So I wouldn't get too down on this. Like I said, looking at some of these games, we, some of them have been close games, but this men's basketball team, there's something different about them this year, and I think it'll be really fun to see what they can do. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't have this on my notes. I just thought about this talking about them. I don't exactly know what it is, but the NCAA voted, and something happened where the University of St. Thomas will be postseason eligible a year earlier than initially projected. So starting next school year, fall sports and spring sports, winter sports will be eligible for postseason play, which is incredible. It was supposed to be the year after that. What would that be? The 26, 27 school year, which was also going to be the first full school year that the new building for men's and women's hockey and basketball would be in, and all that fun stuff. So, but super excited. I think with this, you're definitely going to see the Tommy football team kind of really get down to business to hopefully get into postseason play next year. Obviously, with how they played 2 years ago, they would have made the tournament just by virtue of being a conference champion. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Can't wait. Should be fun. Can't wait to cheer them on some more. But yeah, for the men's basketball team, they will be in action this Saturday, the 25th, against Kansas City in Kansas City, Missouri. And then the night of the next podcast, they will be in Chenecker Arena to take on Oral Roberts. Excuse me. As for the women's basketball team, they've had a little bit of a different they've had a little bit different start to Summit League play than the men's team has. They started off 0-4 to start off Summit League play, picking up their first win against Omaha of all teams this last Saturday, the 18th, and then fell to South Dakota State last night, despite leading for most of the game. Stinks to see, but again, this, outside of, we've talked about it before, I'm not going to, beat a dead horse. Outside of their conference, they've played a relatively tough non-conference schedule. So you're going to see that they're sitting at 9-10 right now, 1-5 in the conference. God awful. You'd obviously like to be a little bit better, but there's still plenty of games to be played. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 games left, so a lot of things can happen. But I'm inclined to think that their next 2-3 games here, they got on Saturday Denver and Chenecker Arena, North Dakota in Grand Forks on the 30th, and then North Dakota State on Saturday, February 1st. If something happened and win at least 2 of those, it might be too late for this women's team to get a favorable seed for postseason play. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. So obviously, I wish them the best of luck, and hope they can turn things around here relatively in a flash. And then for it's just occurring to me that we usually start off with our hockey teams, but we start off with basketball tonight. So then for our hockey teams, before the Christmas break for the men's team, we talked about after the break, with the Lindenwood, Ferris State, and then Lake Superior State series is, trying to have that sense of urgency to get them back in contention. And shit, I'm inclined to think somebody on that team was listening. This team is currently on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 game. They tied their last game against Lake Superior State, but they picked up the extra point in virtue of the shootout. So they've been unbeaten in the last 6 games, but have won 5 of their last 6 games, which is super, super impressive. Dispatched of Lindenwood 3-2, 4-2 in Missouri, and then took care of business against Ferris State. First night was a record-setting night, scoring 9 goals. I think we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. And then Lake Superior State. They're a good team. Once again, there's a lot of really good hockey talent in Michigan, and guys that aren't maybe good enough to go to Michigan or Michigan State. This is kind of where they're going now. So, really, really awesome that they've been able to win these last 5 games and at least get the extra point in, the last 6 games. Once again, puts them right back in the contention of the 9, 10, and 5 overall, 6-4 in the conference with what's that? It's January 23rd with a little bit over a month left to go. So, really impressive what they've been able to do. They will be in action this upcoming week against Bemidji State, who I believe right now is currently number 1 in the conference. So if they can turn things around here, that would be big if they can pick up a game, if not both games, and get back 500. Around 500 for the year. That would work wonders for them. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But yeah, can't wait to see what they do. Saturday's game, like I said, both Bemidji State games this weekend. The 25th will be at 6:07, and then the 26th will be at 3:00. For the women's team, kind of similar to the basketball teams, have kind of had an opposite side of the ball recently. So the team is currently 6-2 overall, 3-15-1 in conference play in the WCHA. Once again, it's one of the toughest for women's hockey. One of the toughest, if not the toughest conferences in the league. Not winning too much at all this year, nonetheless in the conference play. But earlier tonight, they took care of business at home against number 4th ranked Minnesota State Duluth, beating them 3-2, which is huge. This is the team that they lost to. They got swept earlier in the year. They beat them 3-0 and then 2-0. So the fact that they were able to even make it competitive and let alone get one is huge, and that should carry some momentum in tomorrow. Hopefully get them a sweep, if not at the bare minimum season split, because then they got St. Cloud State next weekend, and again for them just a tough road ahead. You got St. Cloud State, Ohio State. I believe Ohio State's 2 or 3. I think Wisconsin's still number 1, and I think Ohio State, and it either goes Wisconsin, Ohio State, Minnesota, or Ohio, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio, or Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota. So they got a tall task ahead of them, obviously. The girls' team actually only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games left. So only a couple weeks left here to see what they can do. And yeah, that is what I have for you guys. And then just really quickly before we jump into our professional sports, wanted to give a quick shout out to the bowl game, national championship was played this last Monday, and the Georgia Bulldog, or Georgia, God, Jack, the Ohio State Buckeyes dispatched of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish 34-23 for the national championship. So a huge congratulations to Ohio State, a huge congratulations to Notre Dame too. I think I speak for a lot of people when I say these are two teams that a lot of people did not peg to win a game, let alone 1, 2, 3, 4 games. Ohio State's game was the 8-9 game, and I think that was probably the most, split game of this entire bracket. Notre Dame, I think a lot of people figured Notre Dame would at least beat Indiana, but Georgia was just so dominant, just like Oregon coming into this playoff, that I think a lot of people just had Georgia sweeping the floor with Notre Dame. Truthfully, I've always found it fun to kind of root for Notre Dame. They've always had, good players, solid coaching, things like that. So I was obviously pulling for Notre Dame over Ohio State. A lot of people are thinking, Jack, why would you want it to be the champion to be a Big Ten? And I would argue the opposite. Like, yes, I understand this makes a Big Ten look, really good and makes, is good for everybody in the Big Ten. But at the same time, it's like, screw Ohio State. They've won so much already. Let's get somebody else in the running. So, yeah, like I said, hats off to both these teams. They battled their asses off. Again, neither of these teams really lost many players for their bowl game, so hats off to them. And a huge congratulations to Ohio State. And a really big congratulations to Notre Dame as well. Like I said, not easy to win, especially with neither of these teams being a top 4 team. These guys had to play 1, 2, 3, 4 games to win the entire thing versus Arizona State, Oregon, Boise, or Georgia. If they would have done it, they would have only had to play 3 games. So hats off to them. And yeah, it's going to be a while till we have college football to talk about, but when it is, we'll be here. Yeah, with that, we're in the thick of things for the NFL playoffs right now. Super excited about them. We got the divisional round coming up here. But there were a couple things that I thought we would talk and check in on with the Timberwolves and the Wild. So starting off, the Timberwolves, a lot of people, I haven't I get it. New year, people are busy, everything like that. Haven't gotten a ton of questions from you guys recently, which is fine. But one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about is this overarching theme that the Timberwolves aren't as good this year as they were last year. And I will admit that Julius Randle, 44 games into the season, is not the player that I think we were hoping to trade for. But the more I think about that trade, the more I think it was more about getting Cat off and getting shaking up the locker room a little bit. But yeah, the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about and the biggest blunder I have with this team is these close fucking game blunders. It's got to stop. So I did some digging for you guys, and last year in the 2023-2024 season, when we went an amazing 56-26. We played in 42 close games, and I probably stretched it a little bit, but for both of these records I'm about to say, for last year's and this year's so far, these are games that the final score was decided by 8 points or less. So last year in the 2023-2024 season, like I said, when we finished 50-26, we were in 42 close games. Again, games decided by 8 points or less, and we were 30-12 in those games. We had a 714% winning percentage in those 42-point games. Now, I'm going to preface this with, I said 30-12. I didn't say 40. I didn't say 40-2. You lose games sometimes. I understand it. We've talked about this at length on this podcast before. And I'm not saying this team isn't allowed to lose games, but you have to do a better job because of closing out games, because more often than not, you're going to be in more close games throughout the season than you are going to be in blowouts one way or another. And to put that great record last year we had in 8-point games decided by than that. This year, we've already been in 25 of our 44 games. That games have been decided by 8 points or less, and we are 11-16. We're 11-16 now. I understand some of you may be saying, "Well, that's not the world's worst record," and you're correct. It's not the world's worst record, but it's a 440 winning percentage. And to put this lightly, just over halfway through the season, we've lost 4 more close games than we did all of last year. And that tells me, from looking at these numbers and watching these games, Anthony Edwards is taking too many contested 3-point shots. I was watching briefly that MLK game when, we were beating, who was it again? Oklahoma City. We were beating Oklahoma City. We ended up fucking losing the game, obviously. I shouldn't say obviously. I'm kind of heated about this right now. So we ended up losing to Memphis. We ended up losing to Memphis 106-108. Can't remember the exact score, but we were up 6 points with 3 minutes to go, and we were looking good. But again, I love Anthony Edwards, and I love that he improved on his 3-point shooting and is taking more shots because he is efficient from there. And this isn't me saying Anthony Edwards cannot take 3-point shots. This is me just saying Anthony Edwards needs to be smarter about his shot selection late in the game when you're trying to win a close game. And the reason I say that is because I personally feel, if you go back and watch, I'm guessing if you go back and watch 13 or 14 of these 16 losses in these close games, he is throwing up a contested 3-point shot trying to extend the lead. And I on one hand, I do admire his confidence and his ability to make those shots, but at the same time, the dude is not quite LeBron James, but he is built, and he's one of 10 players, maybe 12 players in the league that can get to the rim at will. In those close games, you should only be taking 3-point shots if they're open and if you're square and you're I know he's been doing that, James Harden step back thing, and it's been working a little bit, but at the same time, it's you gotta play smart. And not only him, but this team is giving too many pointless turnovers late in games. So if I'm Chris Finch, like you have what? You have 1, 2, 3, 4 games left in January, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games. 12 games before All-Star break. Within those 12 games, you gotta get your shit together in the last 5, 6 minutes of the game. You have to be able to close out games better and do that because the trade deadline is fastly approaching, and if they don't think that we can get things together here, they're going to make some changes, and I do not blame them. I think Dillingham is solid. He's been playing really well since he's gotten back, but it's frustrating to see, and this team is too talented to be giving up careless turnovers, letting the ball just go out of bounds, throwing bad passes, jacking up contested 3-point shots when there's just no need to be taking those shots. There's better shots than you can be finding, pick and popping, pick and rolling, going to the basket, getting an and one. Like, people forget that you can still get a 3-point play, 3 points in one possession without taking a 3-point shot. You just have to draw a foul, take a good shot, make your free throw. Like, I'm a little heated about it because if I'm being completely honest with you guys, there's no reason to think that if, some of these, not half, but there's no reason to think that there's no reason this team can't be at least, 28-16 right now. It's frustrating. And the last thing I will say before we close out the Wolves segment is I understand, back-to-backs are a thing in the NBA, just like in the NHL. And I looked into that too. So far, the Timberwolves have played in 6 back-to-backs already, and only once in those 6 back-to-backs have they won their second game, regardless of what happened the second night. So, again, they're human. They're not always going to win these games. I get that. But they need to do a better job in these close games because come playoff time, a lot of these games are going to be close. You have to be able to win these games. So they got a couple of tough games coming up. They go Saturday, Denver at home, Monday, Atlanta at home, Wednesday at Phoenix, Thursday the 30th at Utah. So, and then they got Washington, Sacramento, and Chicago. So again, if you can get by Denver, there's 4, 5, 6 games there that you should be able to rattle off and kind of get things back going in the right direction. The one thing I thought was worth talking about for the Wild is how well they have done without Kirill Kaprizov. So Kirill came back earlier tonight, against that egg we dropped against, the Utah Hockey Club. Hate to see it, but at the end of the day, again, losses happen. But Kirill was out for 12 games, and it amazes me just how guys stepped up. Like, you kind of figured that, okay, guys would step up. Rossi would, score a couple. Bully would score a couple. I don't think people anticipated this happening. In those 12 games he was out, Zuccarello, Boldy, and Rossi all averaged at least 1 point a game, which is just insane to me. Zuccarello led everybody with 14 points. He scored 4 goals. Nobody in that time span scored more than 5 goals. Rossi did that, and then Boldy, Zuccarello scored 4 apiece. But the fact that this was everybody kind of picking up the slack is just unbelievable. You had 19 different players get at least 1 point while he was out, including Gustafsson, who got an assist on one of these goals. But you really kind of saw the emergence of Rossi kind of being one of the top players here too. Rossi got 2 power play goals. Like I said, he led the team with 5 goals, 7 assists. So it was really nice to see them kind of get things going. You saw Jonas Brodin score 2 goals, get 6 assists. Jared Spurgeon came back, got a couple assists. Declan Chisholm got a goal and 4 points. So it's nice to see that, the defensemen are chipping in when they can, getting into the plays and making things happen. But, we got Kirill back, and I heard somebody, can't remember if I was listening to another podcast or it might have been the radio, and they were just talking about, it was earlier today, and they're like, Kirill's coming back, but give him 5 to 6 games. And I don't think he could have been more spot on. You can't expect a guy like his stature to be out for so many games and just, boom, be back to superstar status. Like, he looked okay tonight. He didn't look great. Give him a couple games and he'll get back to his form and be getting things going here. So it should be good things for the Wild. They're currently, excuse me, They're currently, despite the loss tonight, the second team in the Central Conference in points with 60 points. They're only, fourth in the entire Western Conference, and then in the entire league, they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, despite having Kirill out, still being able to be a top 10 team, bordering on a top 5 team in the NHL is pretty fucking insane. So it's nice to see, like I said, wrapping up, that these guys stepped up, took that upon themselves. It sucked to drop a goose egg like we did tonight, 0-4 to Utah of all teams, and in Kirill's return. But like I said, he'll be back. It's not going to take long. But coming up for them, they will be hosting the Calgary Flames Saturday the 25th as well. Sunday they'll be in Chicago. Wednesday they'll be in Toronto. And those will be the first two of a 5-game road trip that they will be on. So that is what we have for everything non-football / NFL related. So kind of wrapping up divisional weekend, there were some things I liked. There were some things I didn't like. Let's start with what I didn't like. It amazed me how do I want to say this nicely? I don't know if I want to say it nicely, actually. It amazed me how many one-sided calls the Chiefs benefited from in that game, and they still only won by 9. It's appalling to me. I think Patrick Mahomes has quickly, for a lot of people that aren't Kansas City fans, has quickly kind of went from this, you hate him or you dislike him because he's so good, to now you just can't stand the guy. Him flopping around out there like he's some fucking wounded fish. Like, knock it off. I was listening to Tom Brady. He was on, I can't remember if it was a Rich Eisen show or something, and he was asked by the show he was on how he felt about quarterbacks and the Patrick Mahomes thing, and he made a lot of great points. It's like, look, once these quarterbacks get out of the pocket, they should be treated like a running back. And if you're a quarterback and you want to be treated like a quarterback out of the pocket, you need to go down. All this cutesy Patrick Mahomes faking going down, like, you're going to piss people off and you're going to take a big hit. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not saying he deserves to get injured. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he deserves to get his bell rung by somebody, to say, hey, don't fucking do that shit again. But it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I genuinely, before we kind of get into previewing the Chiefs-Buffalo game and the Eagles-Commanders game, I, for the love of God, really, really hope that anything they call on Patrick Mahomes, they call on Josh Allen too, because Josh Allen this year has been more of an MVP to not only his team, but also to the NFL than fucking pretty boy Patrick Mahomes has been. To be completely frank, he is turning into a little bit of a Stephon Diggs, if I'm being completely honest. He's not quite the team diva, but he is a diva towards the ref. If he's not getting his calls, you see him every fucking play talking to a ref. You see him looking for a play. You see him talking, saying something. It's like, shut the fuck up and play ball. This is NFL football, playoff football. Like, just quit acting like you're the second coming of God, dude. It's insane, and I can't stand it. I don't think there's anything other to say other than I can't stand it. Moving on, Bills Ravens. You hate to see a guy like Mark Andrews get the heat he's getting for that game, but that game was so close. It was almost exactly how I thought it was going to go. It was close. There were moments when you thought either team could win. And it was a great game. Ultimately, despite that drop, I think the better team did win. So hats off to the Bills for making it back to the conference championship. And then, holy fucking shit. So after I did last week's podcast, I didn't get a lot of messages from you guys, but I saw a lot of people saying, if this turns into a shootout, the Lions are gonna fucking just kill them. Those messages did not age well. It was a fucking shootout, and holy shit, did the Commanders hang? No, I know a lot of people are probably going to be saying, well, they only did so well because they went up against a depleted secondary that finally got exposed by them, and the Eagles don't have a depleted secondary, and it's like, okay, whatever. Still can't believe that happened. but also at the same time, there were some moments in that game that Dan Campbell chose to be aggressive, which that's his nature, and that's part of the reason they lost. And you know what? The other part of the reason they lost is they couldn't contain Jaden Daniels. I mean, let's just look at some of these stats for you guys really quick. Jaden Daniels, not only threw for 1 yard short of 300, not only did he throw for 299 yards and 2 touchdowns on 22 completions, but he also ran for 51 yards on 16 carries. Like, this guy is unbelievable. This guy is unbelievable. I said it at the beginning of the year that one of the 2 quarterbacks we should be trading up to get is either Jaden Daniels or I think I actually said Drake May. But Jaden Daniels was a name that I brought up. This kid's going to be a stud. I can't wait to see what he can do in ball. But yeah, and then last but not least, the Eagles-Rams game, that was the one game that kind of went the opposite of how I thought it was going to go. The Rams just looked like a typical warm weather team that just wasn't going to play well. I couldn't have been more wrong. Hats off to the Eagles for making it to the conference championship as well. On the back of Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. But yeah, we are now finally... Oh, one more thing. Kevin O'Connell, my friends, has signed a multi-year contract extension. So I hope this tells people that he is here for the long haul. There is zero reason why owners would give an extension to a guy that they plan on trading. He's going to be here for the long haul. I know some people will be saying, well, shit, why is he signing this? He's been to the playoffs twice and he still hasn't won a game yet. Okay, I will give you that first one sucked, but last year nobody could have seen Kirk Cousins tearing his Achilles. And this year, with how well Sam Darnold was playing the first 16 games, I don't think I shouldn't say this. I should say that. With how well he played the first 16 games, I don't think anybody anticipated him playing that poorly in the final 2 games. But I think if people are honest with themselves, like I'm starting to come to reality, I think the fact of the matter is that is the quarterback he is, true and true. And they always say you can tell, a star, or you can tell how players really are and what you're really going to get from them when the lights are on. The lights were on those last 2 games, and he was dick. Again, I think a lot of Vikings fans are a little bit too harsh on this season, when in fact I think we need to be a little bit more on the notion of this was a successful season. Like, I think the fact that we made the playoffs this year, we surprised so many, not just national fans, but fans like from our own state. I think I said this a couple times, I sound like a fucking jukebox on repeat. I don't think a lot of people anticipated us winning so many games or making the playoffs. Our over-under on wins was 6.5 at the beginning of the year. And we got our 7th win, in week fucking 9? No, week 10 because of the bye. Week 10. So with 7 games left, we had already beaten 8 games, whatever. We had beaten our projection and just blew it out of the water. So it obviously sucks to go out the way we did. It would have been, as weird as it is to hear, it would have been nicer had we hadn't been able to make it a game and lost 27-23, 27-25, 27-21, something like that. But the fact that we made the playoffs in a year where a lot of people thought Sam Darnold was going to be playing like he did in the last 2 games the entire year, just insane. Just insane. That's the last thing I wanted to bring up. So now the conference previews. So the first game on the docket is Eagles Commanders at 2 p.m. on Fox on Sunday the 26th. The line is currently I think it's 6.5. Yes, 6.5 points in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think there's a lot to like in this first game. I think you're going to see a lot of running between Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Brian Robinson, and Jaden Daniels. I think you're going to see what worked for the Commanders really well in that game against Detroit. I think you're going to see a lot of triple option looks that could confuse this Eagles defense. And if they can effectively use that triple option throughout the rest of the game, it could be a long game for the Eagles, despite how good their secondary is. But yeah, I thought it'd be fun this week before we get into our picks to describe how each team can win. So, like I said, how can the Eagles win? They need to run the ball. Plain and simple. That is their formula. Barkley tends to hammer a defense early and typically breaks through at some point. I think defensively, the Eagles have limited some explosive plays, done enough to stop the run, and tend to force turnovers, something they didn't do so well earlier in the season. But Washington hasn't shown to be a team that turns the ball over all that often. In fact, if we look at just yards strictly from the playoffs, right now, of the four remaining teams, the Buffalo Bills have the least amount of yards given up with 320. Kansas City's next with 336. Philly with 352, and then Washington with 402. So it is pretty impressive to me that the Washington Commanders have been able to give up so many yards but still be successful. And part of that is because you look at the offensive side of the ball. Again, 4 teams remaining. Washington Commanders, sorry, force a habit. Sorry if you defended. 15 yards per game this team has averaged. And then you go down Buffalo Bills, 372 a game. Then you got to go down 2 more. Then you got the Eagles, 320 a game. And then you go all the way down to, the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, whoops. Opposite way. Kansas City Chiefs, 212. In 212 yards of offense. So this actually, quick side note, this is a perfect example of how much they benefited from fucking penalties. This Kansas City Chiefs team got 212 yards of offense in their one game against the Houston Texans, and they were still able to put up fucking 23 points. How does that happen? Anyways, so yeah, that's kind of what I think of this upcoming game. I think it'll be a very fun game. I think it's going to be a rubber match. The Eagles took care of business against the Commanders earlier in the season when they were playing in Philadelphia. And then the Commanders took care of business late in the season against the Eagles. Comeback fashion, might I add, too. And a lot of people will probably be saying that the only reason they beat the Eagles was because Jalen Hurts was not the quarterback. I say they just beat arguably the best offense in the league against the Lions. That doesn't matter to me in the playoffs. Jaden Daniels has shown that he is not shy away from big moments. This kid looks cool, calm, and collected. On third and on first and on second and 20s, like, this guy is the real deal, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with for a while here. I do really like Saquon Barkley. I think he's a dog. I think he's been running all over defense all year. He should have beaten the record, honestly. Fuck you, Sirianni. As much as I hate the Eagles, he should have started Saquon and at least let him try to get the record. But that's beside the point. Should be a really fun game. I am going to be taking Washington plus 6.5 in this game because I think regardless of who wins, it's going to be decided by 3 or 4 points. So with that, give me Washington 6.5 points against the spread and the Washington Redskins beating the Philadelphia Eagles 34-31 to advance to the Super Bowl behind the back of Jaden Daniels. And then before we get into the Chiefs-Bills game, I thought we would do a quick look at how we've done so far in the playoffs. So we're even. So going into conference championship round, we're 6-4 with our picks, just straight up who we think is going to win, and 6-4 against the spread as well. Wild card weekend, we went 4-2 in our picks, 3-3 against the spread, and then we went 2-2 in our picks divisional weekend, and 3-1 against the spread. So yeah, still a lot of work to do to finish 9-4, but I still have a lot of confidence that is going to happen. So yeah, like I said, Washington plus 6.5. And Washington beating the Philadelphia Eagles 34-31. The reason I like the 6.5, like I said, just like last week, playoff football, most games are decided by 6 points or less. So the fact that Philly is that in favor, I think a lot of people forget that Washington plays outside too. So I don't think Washington will be all that I don't know what the weather is supposed to be like. I don't think Washington will be that phased by the weather as the LA Rams were. So I like Washington to get things done and to put a damper on the Eagles season. Second game will be the Kansas City Chiefs, number 1 seed, taking on the Buffalo Bills, the 2 seed, at 5:30 p.m. A game will be on CBS and Paramount Plus. Kansas City right now is 2-point favorites, and I cannot wait for this game. I already said it. I think the thing I'm looking forward to the most in this game, I shouldn't say looking forward to the most as much as it is curious to see how it plays out, but the officiating. I'm not going to talk too much about officiating changes and things like that until after the Super Bowl, but believe we're going to have a guest on recapping the Super Bowl, and we're going to both have some ideas on what the NFL needs to do to have better refereeing and rules that they should implement, whether it's next year, 2 years, whatever. But I'm very interested to see how this game gets called. This business is very, let's protect our star players, which I get. But at the end of the day, everybody's star players are fucking quarterback. So I've said, again, I probably sound like a broken record. I've said it a million times if I've said it once on this podcast. In any given game, if a quarterback is getting hit, you have to think to yourself, is this a call? Like, if this were Patrick Mahomes and that call happened, would I call it a flag? And if the answer is yes, you should be throwing the flag, because as much as you want to protect pretty boy Patrick Mahomes, you should be protecting Jane Daniels, Drake May, Sam Darnold, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford. You should be protecting all of these guys. Josh Allen, I mean, you could argue right now, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts probably. Like, there are 4 or 5 quarterbacks in this league right now that are just as good, if not better, than Patrick Mahomes. So the league should be doing a better job of protecting all of their quarterbacks, not just Patrick Mahomes, and gifting him just ring after ring. With that said, I think this is going to be the close game. Once again, I think it's going to look very much like that Bills and Ravens game. Again, you bring up the stats, and I mean, offensive wise, the Chiefs only amounted 212 total yards of offense against the Houston Texans. They only managed 50 yards of rushing. So if they can't rush the ball effectively, that's going to be tough for them. And on the other side of things, the Buffalo Bills had 372 yards of two average between their 2 games. They're averaging just a little under 195 in passing and a shade under 180 in rushing yards. So the one thing that the Buffalo Bills have going for themselves heading into this game is they've been able to use the balanced attack, rushing and passing. Very similar to this Washington offense. The only difference is I haven't really seen Josh Allen in a lot of triple option plays, which he's not the same archetype as Jaden Daniels is, but it works for them, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. You look at this Buffalo Bills team in their 2 postseason games. James Cook is averaging 4.7 yards per rush, Ty Johnson 5.4, and Josh Allen 0.7, and even Ray Davis 6.4. So this team knows how to run the ball effectively, when to throw, when to pass. Josh Allen knows when to run, when to pass, when to do what he's got to do. And on the other side of the ball, you look at the defensive side of things too, and the coming into this game, the Buffalo Bills of the 4 remaining teams are giving up the least amount of yards. They're giving up 320 yards of offense. Kansas City Chiefs are giving 336, Eagles 352, and Commanders 402. Neither of these defenses have played, exceptional. Those are lots of yards, but it should be a tightly contested game. I anticipate it to be a good one. Obviously, we've been talking about a lot about Buffalo, but Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes is going to have his guys helping him out. Xavier Worthy, Juju, Travis Kelce of all players, Noah Gray, all those guys have been super helpful to him as well, Isaiah Pacheco. So they definitely have the star power and the guys to, break open a game as well. I mean, shit. Travis Kelce caught a ball in that Houston game. What looked like was only going to be for 12 yards, and he was going to get tackled immediately, and he turned that into, I think, a 57-yard gain or some crazy shit like that. So this has the potential to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a little bit less than that. But in this one, I got this one finishing a 31-27 ball game in favor of the Buffalo Bills. I said it at the beginning of the season that I didn't even everybody was talking about were the Kansas City Chiefs going to be able to three-peat. And I said at the beginning of the season that I didn't even think the Chiefs would make it to the Super Bowl. I stand by that statement, not just because I said it at the beginning of the year, but because in my heart of hearts, I believe it. Yeah, I don't want to play the shoulda, coulda, woulda game with the Houston Texans, but right now, coming into this game, the Buffalo Bills are playing better football, better complementary football, passing, defense, special teams, rushing, all those things. And and I didn't personally see a ton of flags getting called in that Ravens-Buffalo game, which doesn't surprise me. I would love for the refs to put their whistles and to put their flags away for this game and just let them play. Let the better team win and let the guys play. And I think it starts with it's probably not going to happen, but these refs at the beginning of the game should be telling Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, hey, you complain. We're not listening to you. We're not putting up with it. We're going to let you guys play. I would love for that to happen. Are we going to be able to see it happen or not? I'm not sure, but that is what we have for you guys. And then lastly, like I said, Sam, we had on last week. I believe he's actually going to be on with us next week as well. Wanted me to announce to you guys that he has the Eagles beating the Commies and the Bills beating the Chiefs. So we differ in one game, Sam. Obviously, I hope I come out on top. But I also know in your text you sent me to say this, you would not be surprised to see the Commies over the Eagles. But in your heart of hearts, said you couldn't take the Eagles to lose. So, gotta respect it. Game recognized game, my friend. Because I know you're going to be watching this. But yeah, that's what we have for you guys. Really quickly, once again, I like Buffalo over Kansas City, 31-27. I like Washington over Philadelphia, 34-31. I don't even know if I mentioned the line. The line for the Buffalo Bills, Kansas City game is just 2 points. So give me, Buffalo +2 in that game. Because I think they're going to win outright, and I don't see this being an actual 1-point game. But yeah, that's what I have for you guys. We'll have to just patiently wait a couple more days before we're able to watch these two wonderful games. And I hope everybody stays safe and has fun watching these games. So with that, till next time, Minnie.